This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, and these team seasons are brought to you by pain. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Podcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. You know it's bad when it's week 2, and you could pretty much clearly say these are the worst teams in football. Grossi, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 worst teams in football. Or should I say bottom 5? Top seems a little oxymoronic. So as we do every week, we do our power rankings. It's the top 10. It's a little much to rank all 32 every single week, but I feel like every now and then we just need to talk about the bottom feeders. We need to talk about the worst of the worst, and that's what we're here to do today. Now, this video also could change from week to week, as we've only played 2 games, and I know it's a little bit early, but these teams in particular, whether it's based off of injuries they may have suffered over the past 2 weeks, or they're just horrendous gameplay, I think I consider them the worst. So starting at number 5, you have the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Panthers, I will argue, have been relatively competitive, right? They were competitive in the first game, and they almost won against the Raiders. And against the Buccaneers, well, they weren't that good. But the Buccaneers are supposed to be a good football team. Teddy Bridgewater threw 2 interceptions. But at the same time, you look at guys like DJ Moore who put over 100 yards, and you're like, okay, and they still have CMC. And now they don't have CMC anymore. So the reason why they're on this list is because obviously with the loss of CMC for at least 3 weeks, because he's been put on IR, he's going to be expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know what this team is going to do. You have Teddy Bridgewater who's going to be like, okay, I'm going to go out there and try to win the game. And Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is a good quarterback, but he's not the guy that you want to put all of your hopes and dreams on. Couple that with a defense that's really not that good except for Brian Burns. You have a recipe for disaster in which both sides of the ball are not really producing. So I think for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks, the Panthers are going to be on this list. And I feel like Panthers fans are just like, when's the draft again? Then at number 4, this was a toss-up. I was contemplating putting the Detroit Lions on here just because of Matt Patricia and the amount of talent they have on that team, even though, yes, they have suffered injuries. The amount of talent that continues to be wasted on the Detroit Lions football team almost got them there. But instead, we're going to go with another team, and that's the Washington football team. And if you're thinking for a second, wait a minute, why is Tom in a different outfit? Don't worry about it. The Washington football team is a bad football team. Week 1, their pass rush looked amazing against the Eagles, who also could have made this list. And then week 2, not so much. Kyler Murray ran all over them. And on top of that, their offense was literal garbage. Now, Dwayne Haskins has been put in almost an impossible situation with not a ton of weapons. However, Terry McLaurin has been like the lone bright spot for that offense. I do not trust the Washington football team with a lead. I don't trust them to make a comeback. And their defense, after looking pretty damn good the first week, didn't really look at all good the second week. And again, I know that we're doing this right after week 2, but I have zero confidence that the Washington football team is going to be a competitive team this year, and on top of that is going to win more than something like 5 games. I feel like their defensive line is what that team is going to build itself around, and they're just going to have to try and put everything together behind that. But for right now, a lot of people were saying maybe they could be like the 49ers. They got Chase Young. He could be their Nick Bosa. You have to have more than just a Nick Bosa to have your team go well. So yeah, Washington's a bad football team. Then number 3, you got the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Joe Burrow, I'm going to continue hyping him to the moon. Looked really good against the Browns as well. However, that's about it. Their run game is anemic. It's pretty terrible. Joe Mixon has not done so good. He has 115 total yards. The O-line is terrible, and Joe Burrow is pressured on just about every single pass that he goes to make. And then let's talk about the defense, especially the run defense. Non-existent. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb ran all over that thing. And so we talked about this in the offseason. While I think Joe Burrow is going to improve that team, and I think he's definitely proven that, like, you know, he's probably the guy that you want to lead the franchise, They need to put a team around him, and I think it needs to start at the offensive line, because the fact that the guy has thrown that many balls and has looked as good as he has, yeah, you got to protect him, Bengals. So they have their franchise QB. It's time to build a team around him. Number 2, you got the New York Giants. Bruce would be so upset. The Giants. Oof. Week 1, I thought maybe it was a fluke. Saquon Barkley going up against that Steelers defense. Steelers are a good football team. It's okay, Barkley. You're going to bounce back. Or not. Losing Saquon Barkley for the rest of the year is a tremendous blow to that Giants team. Daniel Jones is running for his life. That offensive line is god-awful. Like, god-awful. I don't know what to do with that offensive line. Devontae Freeman signed with the Giants. Good luck, buddy. I don't know if this is where you want to rejuvenate your career. The defense, not much better. This defense I expected to be bad. The offense, I was like, you know what? Danny Dimes might improve a little bit. They don't have a ton of wide receiver threats, but they'll be okay. But at least they have Saquon Barkley. Well, they don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. So for this Giants team, I really don't know what they have anymore besides pain. And before we get to the number 1, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to our sponsor, who is Squarespace. So I've been using Squarespace, this amazing website builder, for the past 6 years. When I first started stand-up, I created TomGrossiComedy.com, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't know how to build a website. And so with Squarespace, it was super easy, it was super intuitive, and now I essentially use it for all of my shows where I'm going to be performing. I also use it as my store, so you can put merch on there. Like, for example, you can go and purchase a Grossi Posse shirt from there, and basically what Squarespace will do, as soon as someone buys it, it will send you an email with all of their information. And on top of that, it also keeps track of your inventory and when you're running low and should reorder. So head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're like, oh man, this is amazing, head on over to squarespace.com/TomGrossi to save yourself 10% off your first purchase. And finally, number 1. The worst team in the league. Yeah, it's the New York Jets. Jets fans watching this video, if you are watching this video, if you still exist, are like, yeah, no, this, I saw this coming. Where do you start with this team? Where do you start? You know, when I was drafting in fantasy, there was a part of me I was like, you know what? Le'Veon Bell. Maybe he could do well this year. And then I remembered that Adam Gase existed. Now, I'm not blaming Adam Gase for the fact that Le'Veon Bell got hurt. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is they don't have a running game, right? They're led by Frank Gore, and no disrespect to Frank Gore, but if that's your number 1 option, you might have some problems. Sam Darnold, who I think is a good quarterback in a terrible position, has a bad offensive line, even though they added some pieces to it, hasn't really helped. What weapons does he have to throw to? No, that's a genuine question. Who are these people? And the defense, listen, I knew they were going to be hurt because of all the opting out. And on top of that, they were going to have to deal with the fact that they traded away their best safety, arguably their best player on the team. But this team is bad. And they are making the case that they are going to be the number 1 pick in the draft bad. And I'm just fascinated and so curious as to what they're going to do with it. You're going to go for Trevor Lawrence? You're going to give up on Sam Darnold already? I don't think you will, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. Now, maybe there's a chance that Denzel Mims emerges and, maybe they can get a resemblance of an offensive back, but I literally have no hope as long as Adam Gase is their head coach. So almost for that specific fact alone, yeah, the Jets are the worst team in football right now. And I think it's by a lot. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. There are other teams that I had up here. I was thinking the Eagles, because the Eagles have looked abysmal. Week 1, they were god-awful. Week 2, Carson Wentz didn't look good. And, you were close. You were close. The Washington football team, the only thing saving you is your defensive line, because your offense is not really that great, except like that one wide receiver. But, yeah, there's some other people that might move up on this list real quick. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.